Good afternoon, everyone. BC Richfield coming to you live from London. It's just gone a couple of minutes past midday here, making it a few minutes past 1100 UTC. A big shout out to everybody joining the stream live today. We've had several thousand people joining us on a weekly basis. So a huge shout out to all of you, as well as everybody that's going to be watching this on recording. Hopefully it hasn't messed too many people up this week. We were a little bit earlier on Monday, so some people missed it. And now we're back to the regular time. So naturally, probably be a few people that might be in the DMs saying that they missed it, but we should be sticking with our 1100 UTC from here on out. So how are we all doing today? Erica, see you there in the chat. Hans as well. How are we doing? Yeah, absolutely imperative to come to the stream prepped with a fresh cup of tea. So what are we doing today? I just wanted to start. We're going to do our alt request Wednesday. We've had loads of you messaging in on Twitter. We've got Soul BNB, Sui, Eth, Fet, loads of them going on. Nick, my friend, how are we doing? Guy on Earth, what's up? Great to see you. So I want to start with this, right? I put a post out on Twitter this morning. Well, I put a post out yesterday actually explaining that I was slightly favouring shorts here on BTC. Why is that? Well, actually, holding, on the 4 hour, which is, as an intraday trader, pretty much my higher time frame. If we look at the clear and obvious here, seems to me like we could be holding this, right, as a higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low. So, all right, BC, why the hell are you short then? Well, actually, because of where we're delivering from, right? So this big bullish gap here, before price closed below it, we were expecting price to find support here. We had this nice expansion, left this gap here, expecting price to drive into this and then push higher. Now, one thing that kind of, we wanted to be cautious of here was making sure that we kind of had a 50% retrace. And actually our 50% line here, we can see this wasn't quite within it. So a dip a little bit deeper could be expected, right? Absolutely no problem with that. And we were ready for it. However, needed to appreciate that we're driving into this other inversion down here. All right, so let's just get that colored back. So as I said in the post, we're basically just kind of trapped between these two inversions here. And Wazy Malogo, hello, my friend. So we're kind of trapped between these two. So while we're delivering from here, what I quite like about this resistance, if there's many people out there that like resistance, is the fact it's also a balanced price range. Okay, and actually is a little bit down from here, because we allow for the bearish gap that's here, right? So let me just draw that in as well. And you can see just what a cluster we've got here. I'm extending these beyond one another so that we can see what they are. So bearish gap in red, all right? Balanced price range, I normally do in kind of a lighter purple. It's not going to stand out very well, unfortunately. But you can see here how this bullish gap here was closed through violently, creating a bearish gap as well. These areas often make strong areas of resistance, okay? So I'm not really turning full bear on this at all, to be honest. I don't really hold high time frame predictions as such. It's not really my bag. I'm looking for liquidity and where I think price is most likely to move, all right? So for me, if we're not taking highs and lows, we're reacting to these gaps. And while we're in this gap, I'm favoring a short bias. When we're delivering from this gap, or inverted gap, then I'm looking for longs, all right? So very, very happy to just trade this lower into here as long as we're delivering from here. So that was it. That was a thought process. The next part of it was that we taken out Asia's high, we taken out higher day, everything just kind of aligned itself here. This big, long downwards delivery that we had. And once we align that, we have a shift in market structure. We overlay our 15-minute bearish gap here. Just do that in red. And then on the 5, we just got that beautiful return here to this gap. Yeah, and look, if I'm wrong above here. We set the order block, which is that nice black line, expecting lower. And look, we reacted at this, but we drove back up from here. We delivered from this here. Now, some people saying in the membership, you're not worried about kind of sweeping this low. The one thing I would say about this low is if I'm looking for clear and obvious lows, this is pretty decent, but this sat above this higher time frame gap here, and also a line time frame gap, is more of a draw for me. So just for anybody that might have been looking at that and kind of seeing it over, that was just the explanation for that. Obviously, Trade is still open. Stops are at entry now. Took some profit down here, about 1.56R, I think it was. So let's see how it plays out from here. It'd be nice to get a bit more kind of up only. But as I was discussing with a good friend of mine, Just Pitt, who is on the show, there he is, total and utter Chad. Let me grab you some of this. So I think we had like 3,500, 4,000 people live last time, and I gave you a really, really good insight to follow this guy. And I think about 5 of you did it. So it's totally up to you. You don't have to do it, but I'd definitely be following Just Pitt. Get the pleasure of working with him on a daily basis. And I think his last 13 trades or something, I think he's killed like 11 of them, like crushed them. So yeah, like myself, good student of SC and just that kind of ilk. So you can learn a lot from this guy. So I would just say, give him a follow. If you don't like his banter, just unfollow him, right? But I would say if you're here for the charts and to make some money, he's a very, very good bet. So what else have we got up here? Yeah, by the way, guys, remember, Discord is currently open. I think this is going to close down towards the end of this week. So if you want to join us for free, there's the link to the Discord. There's no hidden anything. Just come in. You don't have to sign up for anything. There's none of these catches where we're like, we'll get you on an auto renew or anything like that. It's just free. It's been a brilliant vibe in there lately. We've got a wonderful community. Everybody's really enjoying themselves. Come along, get access to the trades, get access to all the courses of all our amazing full-time professional trading team. And come and enjoy yourself, see what it's all about, all right? So that will remain in the comments. If you've got any issues with that, let me know, and one of the technical team will pick that up. Who else have we got flying in? Victor, my friend, always good to see you in here as well. And Hans, of course, you're following him. You are a shrewd beast. I love it. So let's dive in, shall we? Get ourselves back to some charts. A few things I just want to cover here at the moment before we kind of look at our altcoins. Take a sip of me tea while I'm here. So, what's the date today? August, Wednesday, the 25th. What have we got later? FOMC. Now, look, the key thing for me this week is actually the Jackson Hole Symposium and the fact that we've got, quite a big Thursday, in my opinion. Employment claims last week, which came in under, which is bullish, right? Combined with really good retail figures, a lot better than than they were predicting, led to this huge bullish catalyst across, traditional markets. All right, the bids were coming in hot. The Nasdaq, S&P 500, just absolutely having a tear up. So I'm really watching this tomorrow, right? But this here is always significant. What's significant about it is, look, these are the minutes, from the last meeting. Yeah, so we don't expect them to have as higher impact, but I tell you right now, they still will, because the tone in which Powell speaks will let us know a lot. If he's hawkish, which basically means bullish, if he's saying things like becoming more committed to rate cuts, especially a 50 basis point rate cut, then we could really see the market take off. Now, the reason I'm mentioning this now, you're thinking, Jesus, that's 7 p.m. your time. Right, which is 6 p.m. UTC. So we've got just under 6 hours to go until that. But, as our friend Hans says here, right, and there's no better way of putting it, this news hammers account. It can be the enemy or the friend of risk. And the enemy of risk is a big enemy of Bitcoin typically, and enemy of Bitcoin or Bitcoin's, if that's in a bad state, then alts typically bleed even harder, right? So that's what we're going to look at today. We're going to look and focus around more key levels. I'm going to tell you the gaps, the areas that I'm looking for, and also some kind of key support and resistance levels where, we might be looking for this purge at the moment. And it very much depends what Powell's tone wants to be. If he feels like conditions are getting out of control, we need to look at their new labor laws. Or not laws, sorry, but how they're kind of reporting on this, which could affect jobs numbers, meaning that if that does change, then basically it's going to really, really kind of shake everything up, and there's going to be, a lot worse jobs numbers than they've previously been reporting, which could be very bearish. So we want to watch out for this, because if we do get this big flush, we can have some really, really good buying opportunities lower down, or some really, really good shorting opportunities as well. So with that all said and done, do keep an eye on this. You can get access to these sites for free. All right. This is just Forex Factory. Get yourself an economic calendar and just set it to red folder news. Really, really helpful. And it doesn't matter what asset you're trading, right? So let's cut all that, shall we? Let's get back to some charts. And let's start. If you've got any charts you want me to take a look at, do let me know. At the moment, we are going to be focused on Sol, BNB, SUI, or SUI, ETH, and FET for our friend Pitt, who called this out as a really potentially good setup inbound. So we're going to take a look at that as well. If you've got any others, please do pop them in the comments. Let me know. We'll get through as many as we can in maybe the kind of next 30 to 40 minutes. All right. So without further ado, let's start with the first one then. Somebody asked us for Sol. Let's take a look at Solana. Near Oluwazima logo, no problemo. I think we've still got some analysis on there from the last few weeks, so always good. And still some analysis kicking around here with Solana. See what craziness we were thinking about last time. And look, fuck, I wish I'd covered this last week actually, because this is exactly what we were looking for and why we were short on Solana, right? We just saw the perfect storm of a setup here. We had equal highs on a weekly basis here. Swept them, big close below this. What does that mean? It means that this becomes an inversion gap. What does that mean? It means that we're then, when price comes here, we like to see price, either draw up a little bit, come and run that liquidity, right? In this case, seem to run it down, come back up, close, and then hold here. Again, rejecting of this inversion, exactly like we're talking about and looking for on Bitcoin, as we covered earlier, right? That on the lower time frame, because price is fractal. TAO for our dear friend Erica, no problemo. So what does this mean? Well, on a weekly basis, we've seen the rejection here. Does it mean I'm still super bearish? I was never super bearish, first of all, but I was bearish down to these lows. Why? Because we inverted the gap, tells me that there's not enough buyers in this gap. This gap was caused by a lack of order pairing when price shot off, right? So it's huge bullish momentum, meaning that if that bullish momentum's still there, when we return to the gap, we expect it to provide support. If it doesn't provide support, then we expect price to run to the next liquidity, which is resting, in this case, below old lows, okay? Or it can be resting above old highs. In this case, look, liquidity from above this high, we look for the gap to be retested. It closes below, tells us it's searching for liquidity lower down, which it takes, then comes up and sees this rejection at the inversion, and now we're held below it. So we're going to move to a daily. And something that is on our mind with Solana is the fact that we're holding this daily gap. Yeah, we got this little smidgen of a close below it, right? We did. But it just, this long downside wick, and I think I covered this live on the show. This downside wick, right, is just, when you see something like that, you want to see what I call a strong close. You want that to be a full-bodied candle, yeah? The wicks, and nobody instilled this in me better than SZ. The wicks tell you where price has tried to go. Bodies tell you where it's achieved, yeah? So, no, it doesn't work all the time. Look at this monster of a body, yeah? That I was like, right, price is really looking to rip here. But when we then overlay our higher time frame and we say, is it? Or is this just a big, powerful drive up into a point of rejection? So, anyway, on the daily, what have we got here? These long upside wicks here make me feel like price is kind of pushing lower. We've got this beautiful liquidity resting above here. However, what happened was we were stunted in our pursuit because we came and we took this high. Now price is rejecting lower. First point I'm looking for on a daily scale is here, which is down at 140.33, okay? That for me is a really key level because it's the swing low that exists within this gap. Although the gap's been rebalanced, some would argue, and it has really been inverted. But if you're looking for these inversions, price climbing back within it like this, and especially when it closes above it like that or like that, tells you that that's failed, yeah? So as far as I'm concerned, this area isn't overly relevant anymore. However, it was obviously an area that supported price and led to this pump. So that's why we're leaving it on there. Now, the 4 hour where we're going to get most of our framing done here is I still really like these, the liquidity resting above here. We covered this, obviously, you can see towards the end of last week, or maybe actually we covered it on our show on Monday. Sorry, because I think that was last Friday, wasn't it? Now, looking for that run towards here, which we actually started to get. Price has kind of been halted at this high, which we discussed earlier. But these have now been taken. And for the keen-eyed among you, you might notice here that we're kind of building a few of these on the downside here as well, right? So that's what we want to be cautious of. Price loves to run liquidity like this. So we're staying cautious, but ultimately we're kind of holding up here on the 4 hour as well. We've got our high, higher low, higher high. So, I mean, I really want to see some displacement below that. I'm going to get rid of that so that it doesn't have it on that. Consumer indexing milk for that's for anybody that hasn't maybe seen my Twitter today. Please go and look at that. I bloody love the Scots. They're just awesome. If you haven't been over here and you haven't been up there, it's probably one of the most beautiful countries in the world, full of just the most amazing people. The weather will put you to the test. But I tell you right now, if Scotland had, good weather, I think it would probably be one of the greatest destinations in the world. So I'm happy to keep the bad weather because it just keeps it a little bit secret. TIA, of course we can, Victor. So TAO and TIA, that's going to have me in a tongue twister today. I can't really seem to speak properly today, so you might have to bear with me. So what are we looking at here anyway, before I go off on one of my random rants? Well, quite simply, let's squidge the chart up. Give it a good sound squidging, yeah? Now what I'm saying to myself, okay, is can I see a key support and resistance level? And actually, this here really kind of intrigues me. So let's see if it has any weight to it, yeah? So what have we got here? We set this high and then, saw a big sell-off, so key level. What then happened was price closed above it, retest, deviation, back above. Beautiful, kind of an over-under type move here, retest, and then price rips away. Significance, right? Here, support, held, closes underneath, retests this here, which would have been a real sneaky beast to get you really loving the over-unders this move, actually. Resistance, support, runs the highs, gets back underneath, retest, sells off, back above, pumps, holds, right? And this, when you see these type of moves, drives into it once, drives into it twice. Doesn't drive below this, which would have been even better, but it is, again, a third attempt at the same level, something, known as a triple drive. Not something I practice massively, but something I learned off of a legend on Twitter, fellow Brit, Tyler Durden, who, just a magnificent old school trader. So big rip from here. So what does this mean? We look across, hopefully you guys can see the significance of this level, right? So yes, it's looking a little bit muddy here, but for me, I'm kind of saying, all right, what do we do? Support, failed to get that rip. Look how it starts to cling to this level, starts to get underneath. No clean retest here, right? If we look back to some of these, what happens? Price gets underneath. Look how clean this retest is. Just long wicks above and then boom, gets straight back below. Even this is a little bit chunky around here and actually tells me that there might just be a little bit of indecision here. So it's hard to say. I think this is a little bit more liquidity games rather than anything else. We've kind of marginally swept that low. But I think we get back above this level. What do I want to see? Well, I'd quite like to see this taken out, actually. And then I'd like to see price kind of get above this level, establish itself, little sweep, back onto the top of here, build our base, yeah, and then we rip away. So obviously you'd be looking for that on a slightly lower time frame, but your key would be if price closes above. Because, as my friend Trader Dank says about ranges, if it's left the range and it's showing strength, why the hell is it back in the range? Yeah. Whatever you think it might be doing, if it's coming back in the range, typically if this thing is ready to run, then it would stay outside. And the same is true of support and resistance levels as well. So with Solana, I'm a little bit kind of on the fence here. I think for me, I want to see this level run and then price get back above 142.72. That would then give me some confidence to see the higher that is set when price comes in like this. And if you want extra confirmation, you can wait for it to get above, look for your entry pattern, and that's where you can be a buyer. Okay, I like the liquidity still resting above these highs. However, if we stay below this, I think the opposite is true of this level. I think if price gets back below here, yeah, and then we start to hold below here, I'd be looking for this kind of sweep and then looking to trade it lower. Okay, so at the moment, key kind of pivot point here for me on Solana. So let's see what we get on that, shall we? Let me just catch up on a couple of comments quickly, everyone, so we don't leave anybody out. Hi, all, please do Sol BNB. And Sol BNB on high and medium time frames. Okay, well, we'll try and squeeze Sol BNB in at the end, mate, because we'll focus on BNB again in a minute. Right, time to long. Oh, okay, depends. Yeah, 1.3 is a deviation. Time will tell. Yeah, I'd listen to Hans on this one, mate. I'm completely with him. I'd be watching 1.36 on that. Yeah, we need to see it. We need to see it back inside, right? See if it's a deviation or if that is actually breaking. Cool. All right, B&B. Good old Binance coin. What do we got here? That seems like quite a nice level here, actually. Not the cleanest here, right? But a really strong move above it. Gets underneath, comes back up, kind of retest this. Maybe it's a little bit low. But I mean, they're very rarely lines anyway. Look, resistance, resistance, resistance. Flips to support here. Holds, holds. Gets underneath here. Perfect retest. Yeah, this is a good level. I like this a lot, actually. So no surprise we found a bit of support here, right? Price came into this level here. We saw it get bought up. Comes to take out these smooth highs here, which is just a beautiful little spot for price. Gorgeous, actually. That is a good British word. I need to use that more. Right. Comes into that. Then look what happens. We get down. This was just enough to induce shorts. So look, listen when I tell you this, because that's such a twattish thing to say. Apologies. I'm excited by this, right? This was a big game changer for me when I was learning about support and resistance. This is the level you want to see broken down below. Why? Because, and to quote the legend himself, and nobody says it better, how do you know if this is a deviation? You get back inside and then price pumps. It doesn't have to moon, yeah? You can get your stops flat here. Where do you know if you're wrong? Below the low, right? So what do we want to see when price breaks down? Well, how do we know if this isn't a deviation? We want to see price back below this. I do anyway, in an ideal world. If it breaks down here and it does this, yeah, then we get our little pattern, then that is exactly where I want to short this. Yeah. Now, again, I'd be aware of this wick, but then you can just be quite aggressive in moving your stops, right? I know it very much depends on your high time frame bias, right? But what I would say is, this deviation, I think, caught a lot of people out, but look how well respected this level's been on the daily once we got back above here. And again, look, how do we know this isn't a deviation? Just apply the same principles, right? Close above that here. That's where you're a buyer. Drop this to say like a 15-minute chart. Look for our little dodgy line. Sorry, Gio, I'm going to turn your indicator off here, mate, just for the sake of some clarity. And what do we want to see? Yeah. Now, if we're talking about what I want to see, yeah, in terms of my entry methodology, then we're looking for this kind of purge down. Now, I wouldn't be kind of taking trades around here. For me, it's just too early in the day. It's 6:45. Traditional markets haven't opened. Typically, you can get caught in these liquidity sweeps. So for those of you that know typically how I trade, I like to see a sweep of liquidity, which we get there. And then I'm looking for the high that swept the low. High that sweeps the low, that becomes the breaker line. Close above, stops on there, below the swing low. And I mean, this was just too good a target, right? Would have just been a beautiful trade here. I just need to get back into trading crypto a little bit more. I do a lot of traditional market trading, kind of equities and stuff like that. But sorry, let me not diverge too much. Just go back to our daily quickly. Look at that level. It's amazing what you can do with a good level, right? Absolutely amazing. So hopefully that's of use to you guys as well. In terms of where price is going from here, well, actually on the daily scale, I think it looks ready to move higher. It's not the biggest gap in the world, but we have inverted this, right? Bearish gap, closed above it. What are we doing now? Actually, do you know what? I wouldn't mind looking for some bids around here, right? Bullish gap here on a daily scale. We've got a lovely kind of collection of highs here. So we've got a nice clean target here at 605.6. Holding this area here as we move down now to a 4 hour, saying to ourselves, all right, what do we want to see? Well, just want to see price kind of holding these bullish, holding these bullish gaps, right? So if this is it, and we've set our Fibonacci below the 50%, what have we got? Here's the inversion. Here's the big bullish gap. If we overlay this on the 4 hour, this looks like an absolutely sick place to look for longs. All right, between kind of 552 and 545. Not saying I'd just throw some bids down there, by the way, but I am saying that, we drop to a lower time frame like this and we get price come into this area. Yeah, you want to see that nice sweep, nice recovery of that. Remember, you can just be a buyer here. You know where you're wrong, yeah, and you know where you can mitigate risk. All right, so for me on BNB, I'm liking BNB here. Really have to say, I think it's looking pretty strong. Obviously, we need to always factor in Bitcoin here, right? It can be just the ultimate party pooper, but I would say there on that level, in terms of any kind of H4 support and resistance levels that I'm concerned about, quite busy price action through here, actually. Yeah, very, very busy price action. So just like kind of learned a lot of this like from SZ actually, in terms of just screwing these charts up and just really trying to give yourself an idea of where they go. I mean, you can kind of draw these things all day long, right? But I would say probably something like this. So, you know, roughly they're more like boxes and areas, right? What am I looking for? This doesn't really tell us much here, but this could just be, you know, we get the high swing failure and then price gets back below. But looking at these, right, these kind of SR levels here, look, rejection, rejection, price gets back above, underneath, retest, rejection, rejection, above, retest, underneath. Not the cleanest in the world, right? But you can see the interactions that you get here. So I do think this has got room to move a little bit higher here as well. All right, so that's where I'd be on BNB. So that's Sol, BNB. Let's take a look at SUI, shall we? So just to finish that on BNB, sorry, this is the area that I'm looking for long setups. I think if we come down below this, and if we close below, I really want to see a close below this lower gap here as well, right? Because that's a bullish gap. So you want to see a close below kind of 537.9. Then I think we start kind of attacking these untapped lows. Because again, you know, low, untapped low, untapped low. I think there's even equal lows there as well. So for a downside target, that would, my eyes would immediately go to those. Yeah, equal lows there. All right, so close below this area here, I think we flushed this out. But at the moment, while we hold this, I'm feeling a lot more bullish than bearish on BNB. But obviously, remember, let's watch out for market conditions as well. So perfect. Now, what are we on to? SUI. Oh, okay, so interesting. Looking for something similar here, right? Let's just zoom out for a second onto the daily. We're going to bring all this back up in a second, but let's just make sure that we've got our TA out on the daily here. This is interesting because this looks like quite a key level. Yep. Resistance, 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 strong close above, support, support. This little deviation sells off. This tells us a lot. Price really struggling with this level here. Now, price is kind of back above that. I think I want to see it establish itself above this, just as we were talking about before, yeah? This was a slightly sneaky one because you came and set this high, closed back above it. I would have been feeling pretty bullish on this, to be honest, here. But, you know, we just have to see if we got our setups. But I think if we now get back above, what would that look like for me? I think something like that would be ideal, because we come down, purge out liquidity, fill a little bit more of this gap underneath. And then, you know, I think it induces a lot of people short there. I think we put a big short squeeze in and then we could really rip. But yeah, also when we're looking at our gaps, we're still holding this big bullish gap here. Nothing to say that we can't get a deeper purge into this because we barely tickled it last time, right? So let's keep that in mind. Let's drop down to our 4 hour. Oh, actually, let's just do all this first. There we go. So there's our 4 hour. So we can see the level that we're kind of engaging with here. I'll get rid of that. That's the one that obviously was drawn on the daily. Now, what we were looking for here was this to turn into a breaker block, right? Because we were holding this bullish fair value gap, up close candles. We wanted to see a strong close above it, hold it there. What do we get? Price close below. So what do we say with that? Quite simply, when we've inverted a fair value gap, so that line there provides the level that we just closed below. So where do we target? The next liquidity below the low, right? I'm a simple creature. What we got, Pitt? Look at Audi daily, bro, holding nicely high time frame support. Awesome. Let's finish on that beast then. So this is really what I'm interested in here, is just to see this reaction. Yeah, we're coming in, we've purged this, we've taken liquidity below this low now. which is what we were looking for. That's why that low was drawn there. If we close below there, then we're looking to take that liquidity. We've done that. Price continued down. Now, for me on a 4-hour here, this is clear as day. If this fails, this candle closes on the 4-hour, which is going to happen in 28 minutes, then my expectation is for price to seek out liquidity below these lows. I'll draw the extreme of this in, which is 0.7982. But, you know, we obviously be aware of this low here and this low. Just enough of what I would call a cluster. But ultimately, I think it's this big inefficiency here, this big gap that's drawing the market lower. Want to see price back above this red line to get bullish here. As it stands, I think this is looking a little bit heavy. If it closes below this, I fancy we come down towards here. Maybe if price is really strong, maybe we catch a reaction here, but I don't see why it would sweep these lows and not this one, which is within a huge gap and an H4 gap as well. So that's where I would be on SUI. ETH. Take a look where we are with ETH. Again, just drive out onto our daily first of all. Ignore this for the moment. Key thing here is that's a big weekly gap. We were looking for a reaction off of it. We've got that. We've started the sell-off here again. Last week closed as a weekly pin bar. Yeah, kind of hammer candle, bit of a long nose, but, you know, ultimately drew up into this. We can see the sell pressure there. In terms of targets lower down, tricky because we're still holding this bullish gap and we've rebalanced it, right? And the lower gap here as well. Just these equal lows down here just looks so tempting. That low and that low so close together. How that didn't run that. If you see these failure swings, not a swing failure swing where it's come to take the swing, yeah, this swing, but has failed and left another swing, just basically, you know, double bubble liquidity there, right? Price can run that really, really hard. So that's what we want to look for. Anyway, moving to the daily now, that's just to give you the context around why we've got the big red box above us. It's going to sip some tea before it goes cold. Lovely. Right. Again, delivery from bearish gap. Wind beneath wings. What is up, my friend? What is happening? Actually, wind beneath wings has been with us at the nest for a while. Really, really good exponent of TA. Great charts, understands levels very, very well. So good to have you here, mate. So when we're looking at this, right, price is drawing up to now. We've seen this reaction. I do expect a little bit of a deeper draw in here. We've got this key SR level for me here, which is sat at 2885.91 here on Binance. Again, equal lows below us here. Key liquidity, in my opinion. Very welcome, mate. Only the truth. So what am I looking for here? Well, a little tricky, right? Because no, we had this little kind of doji candle, which, you know, gave us the indication price was moving lower. We'll look at that on the 4-hour. It's difficult, right? Because I really want to see a close below that. Yeah, I want to see a close below that because we get a change in state of delivery. That would give me confidence that price is going to run these out. All right, so I'm going to move to a 4-hour. Let's take a look at where we were right now. This was a little bit unfortunate here, right? Because we were looking at the bullish gap here. We said, right, if we invert this, then we're going to come and clear out this liquidity below here. Unfortunately, the candle that inverted it did the job of clearing out all the liquidity as well, which, you know, it's fine. It does happen sometimes. But getting back above it, remember what I said to you, same way with, like, you know, anything, if we invert a gap, if you see an inversion that's disrespected like this, cut through, then ultimately it's looking for the next liquidity, and that next liquidity is above that high. All right, so that's just what I'm looking at. Once again, we saw big, strong moves through the market here from this with this inversion. But ETH really lately just hasn't really wanted to give us anything, right? By the time that closes, you've already taken out the liquidity here. So we've been short biased here, or I've been short biased here because we're holding this bearish gap. So ultimately, we've got this, you know, liquidity stacking above us. That's not really relevant now. And this was what we were looking for here again, right? Close above this, sets this as the order block, change in state of delivery, gives you even more confidence, right, that we're going to come and take out that high. Now, price is reacting from this bearish gap, which has ultimately, you know, capped the market since the 14th of August. So from here, if price is now rejecting from this, there's an expectation for it to take out liquidity from the lows. So I'm actually looking at these relative equal lows down here. And they're sat down resting at 2555 flat. You know what I think about these kind of round numbers. We've been seeing it a lot lately, and they very, very often get flushed. Now, price gets back above this, closes above this, because this is such a big gap. I wouldn't even really worry as much about this inversion, right? Like, you can wait for price to close above here and that be your initial target. But ultimately, I'd really be kind of, I'd be thinking pretty bullish if we just closed above this. Yeah, but that's what I'd need to get me back bullish here. On Ethereum, we kind of zoom this out. If we're looking at our levels and that, this is still a really, really key one for me. But we can also see here, I think, around about here anyway, right? Because if we look back here, you've got this. And again, I'd probably actually just draw this as maybe a couple of lines here, just because I think that this is really, really clean. So resistance, 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 close above, retest, away, support, breaks down, retest, sells off, right? Then here we can see price gets above, retest this area, goes higher. Let's see if we've got anything in terms of recency as well. Yeah, I mean, this just obliterated this level, didn't it? But look when it gets back above, yeah? Again, it kind of then seeks liquidity above that high. And again, you want to see price really establish itself above this high here. Would you call any of those moves establishing? Not really. You get back below here, this tells you it's the deviation when it gets back above, yeah? And again, you could always use this as your line in the sand as well and be looking at this level here to be long. But yeah, I like a little move lower here from ETH. But if we get back above this H4 gap, then I am going to switch bullish on this pretty swiftly. So now we're going to look at FET for our friend Pitt. Now, Pitt's been drawing out this really awesome accumulation range here, which I completely agree with him on. All right. Now, however you want to draw it or whatever, but it's this for me has been really, really key. So actually, if I was looking at this, let me draw as I would draw range. I would draw it from, we come down to the low here, we set this high above here, yeah, and then I'd take this down to the low. So that would be my range, right? Change this, hang on, let me change it back, because otherwise it will wind me up. There we go. This is my range here, right? Now, often you kind of split the range into ranges, right? So upper portion, lower portion, but just looking at this here on the 4 hour, and we will take a look at the daily as well. Price really failing to kind of come and take the range low here. So maybe it isn't the perfect range, but I tell you this right now, look at it, high to low, what happens? Midline, deviate this, get back below, up, range high, deviation, down to the mid. Like a little bit messy, but you can see the interaction here, this kind of support and resistance level. This has been drawn more on the basis of like what I would call an expansion range. Yeah. So when you see a really, really heavy drop and then you get a clean higher set, yeah, then what I'm looking for here is this counts not as a touch, but I'm looking at that for the drop. What I'm then looking for is the price to establish a high and then make its way to a low. The other thing you can do with ranges like this is you can take them from the low. Right, and what we can see here is we got the low, we got the high, and now we're kind of holding this midline. It looks really strong, right? Price just not wanting to get back below this. Actually, this range looks really good. Technically, it's a range within a range, right? Because you would then draw another 50% level here, which would roughly kind of line up with what we were looking at before. But again, this tells us a lot, because look what's happened every time we got below the range. Did we exceed this line? Remember? No, because we would want to see price then get back below, retest that and sell off. Did we get below that? We didn't. Did we get below that? No. So now we've got this line. If we do get this crash, we want to see that retested. Maybe we then come down here to the range lows. But as for all of that, it's actually looking quite strong at the minute, right? So we've got this nice bullish gap here. We're holding that. Again, what would I want to see to get long here? Well, I would have looked to have been long here, to be honest, on an intraday basis. But on a higher time frame, I just want to see price get back above here. You've got triple equal highs here. If this doesn't reject price and price can kind of hold itself here, that's where I'm looking to be a buyer. And I think there's a lot of upside potential here, right? I mean, look at it all. Just loads of untapped highs, not many gaps to contend with. This thing could really take off. If we're looking at this on the daily, we can see these daily gaps drawing it higher. But again, consolidation here. When this thing pops, it's going to go one way or the other pretty quickly, right? And I really like that. I don't even want to overcomplicate that any more than that, other than the fact that we have confluence from a slightly skinny but nonetheless relevant daily gap here as well that looks to support price. So feeling more bullish than bearish on this, sorry, but again, we need to see how this factors in with Bitcoin. So NEAR. Has NEAR been listening to us? It has. There we go. So no wonder NEAR's holding up all right. Again, closed below this, retested it, big sell-off, taking key liquidity. We're looking here. No, if these are some really old school SR levels from back in the day, but still nonetheless relevant, right? A little bit kind of shaky around here. I wouldn't really pay as much attention to these. I'd probably want to redo them, but I do think that they're still relevant. If we draw ourselves out to here, we're looking for these key SRs. This is from kind of early price action here back in 21. Set this high, like setting these ones on the body here. Look, resistance, big close above, retest, deviation back above, retest, sells off, strong close below, resistance, support. Yeah, this is a nice clean level, actually. I quite like that. And we can see what happened here, right? We got that deviation. We get back above it, price really rips. Close back below it, now price is going lower. So, you know, let's look at this as kind of a high and low of range almost. And now we kind of pinned ourselves in around the midline. However, this bearish gap here, which was closed above, becomes then an inversion. Yeah. So I know a broken record, but closes up here. Look how well respected it's been. And it continues to hold price. So not really much else to say on that front other than the fact that our change in state of delivery here. Our change in state of delivery here, or the set of this kind of order block here, not a high probability one, granted, because it's not a key SR level, but it is at this inversion that has offered support once, twice, 3 times now. And look, when this candle closes above, it tells us that price is probably seeking out, I keep hitting the wrong bloody button today, the price is probably seeking out the nearest liquidity, right? So when we got that close, this is what we would have been looking for. Let me just zoom in so we can see it. Yeah, as our minimum here. And we can see price got a big rejection here, came back, but now starting to show strength again. So for me, as long as we continue to hold this, I am looking higher, right? I think intraday or, you know, swing wise, I'd kind of be looking at that as potential concern, because if it's going to run anything and drop down, this is within a gap, within a bearish gap. So it'd be a key liquidity pull. If not, I'm looking up to 4.413. All right. Now, look, happened again. We were looking for this to get a bounce, bullish gap, nice expansion, didn't get it, right? What do? Don't just sit there and just hold this ridiculous bullish bias because, you know, we want to be right. We say, okay, well, that didn't hold. So what happened? It closed below. What did it do? Drew back up. Where to? Around about 50% of this, I would imagine. Holds that perfectly, ultimately sells off. Where to? Liquidity resting below this low here. What happens when we took that low? Well, then we look for the bearish gap that we had here. Did that continue to suppress price? It did. So then we look lower to these equal lows, which was that low, and then these actually not equal lows. Need to amend that. That was swept here as well. But ultimately, that's what we were looking for here, price to come and sweep this liquidity. And now we're back above here. We've confirmed this. We are holding this, which is good. Holding a nice bullish gap there. So what do I want to see? Actually, there's a little slither of a bearish gap here, right? And I think for confirmation, bearing in mind in 14 minutes we got the close, I'd love to see price close above this, because at the moment that is resistance. Yeah, close above this, we go for this high and higher, in my opinion. As long as we hold this, I think we could be looking for this to kind of purge a little bit lower. But let's see. Higher time frame players, I think you want to wait for this daily level here to be closed below on a daily basis before flipping bearish here, in my opinion. Right, TAO. I'm going to fly through these last ones, guys. Let's take a look. Hang on. TA. Yeah, there we go. Or is this the right one, actually? I think this was for... Well, let's take a very quick look at this one. We'll look at both of them, right? Not sure if this is the bit sensor one or not. Yeah, so we can see we made an attack on that liquidity. Ultimately here, this was a bit of a sneaky one. Expected this gap to hold us and support us. We didn't. We inverted it because we closed below it. But what do I tell you about these inversions? Nothing's perfect in trading, but what we do get is when price comes back within it, yeah, this is what gives us that little bullish fuel. Then we say to ourselves, actually, this isn't relevant now because bullish gap, inverted, price is back above it. We don't worry about that now. What I'm looking to here is this order block. On a daily scale, this is what I want to see hold. If we hold this and we get some long positions on the lower time frames, I think we come for this high and then this high. 4 hour, very, very simple here. 4 hours, beautiful, clean as we would like. Bullish gap. This dictates everything for me here. I think as we hold this on the 4 hour, I think we continue to move up. I think we violate it and close back below it. Then I think price could be testing this daily order block here. And I think, you know, these lows down here are going to be a really good target for price as well. Okay, so hold this gap. I would watch this, all about this gap. This is the right one. Oh, awesome, brilliant. Play buzzer. I will try desperately for you, my friend. I will just need to finish up in the next couple of minutes. Otherwise, I'm not going to eat today before going into our live trading session. And we all know, Erica and everyone can tell you how hangry I can get, especially with crypto, if I don't get a little bit of food in me. But I will definitely try play basketball. And our dear friend QBS would love your name. So, yeah, that's where I'm on TAO. Sorry, okay, now TIA. What have we been looking for on here? Well, that's irrelevant now because it held here, but ultimately closing below it here did nothing for us. That bullish gap here failed, closed below, is now resistance unless we get and close above the 50% of this. And we're also delivering from this bearish gap here, which is continuing to suppress price quite nicely. So with this one, I think, yes, we've taken out some lows now. I need to see price back above this on a daily basis to be high time frame, even consider bullish. Close back above here, and I think we come for this high at 6.419, roughly. 4 hour will hopefully tell us a little bit more. Interesting here on the 4 hour, right? Because we inverted this gap, which should be holding bullish. But price came back down, disrespected this, so this now becomes irrelevant. So now our liquidity games are based on our kind of trend line, which is, if we look at it here, yeah, we got highs, we got liquidity above here, above here, above here. Ultimately, we want to see a breakout of this level and this level hold as well. But yeah, I want to see these day on close candles close above, setting this order block, or I'm not looking to be bullish here at all. So we've got a perfect cross here. Price closing above both of these, sets the order block, closes above the trend line, lower time frame. Look for price to kind of have this retest of this area, little liquidity sweep, and then away. Yeah, that would be an aggressive entry because of what the daily resistance that we've got above us. But I'd be happy to go in with that. Yeah, if not, these lows are looking pretty tempting here. So I think we could come all the way down, rebalance this gap completely. No, we've already done it. So I think 4.766 is a realistic target. Okay, so Audi for our friend Pitt. So you're just talking about this one on the daily. Ooh, okay, this is very, very interesting here. I'm not sure what levels Pitt is looking at, but I imagine we're probably looking at fairly similar levels. So look, just a really key, like abnormal wick high, big strong close below it, support here. Now I like the look of this, right? Because this could very well be, look, liquidity sweep, beautiful, love it. Is this the deviation? Yeah. Deviation, price has got back above. This is really what we want to see here. I think for the conservative among us, we want to see a close above this, right? Because that would then set the OB for me. The order block would be a very key order block because we've come into it at a key support level, get back above that, and I think we can absolutely rip. If we want to get a bit more granular on this piece, we've just inverted a very slender gap here, but I do worry, you know, it is a little bit too kind of slender, if you like. And then looking at this here, looks like we've got a bit of an SR level here on a lower time frame as well. Bit messy here, but look, support, close through, resistance, gets above, closes below, resistance and price sells off. Now, this is quite nice because this could be the deviation here. We could look to purge a bit lower, but I think if we now get back above this, and especially above this, yeah, then I think this is the play here. Watch that take off, all right? But as long as we're below this here, maybe we need to purge out some liquidity lower down, yeah? And this low here is pretty good, around about 28.60. Okay, so we're going to finish on ADA. And what have we got here? Andy Cesla. One more question, my friend. Do you ever pay any attention to moving average and their relationship with fair value gaps? I used to trade almost exclusively moving averages about sort of 7 or 8 years ago. Had a wonderful little system actually. And with these kind of things, I'll show you that quickly. See if I've still got my old triple MA on here. Hang on. Let's have a look what these are set to. 2050 200 isn't bad. Maybe 2050 100. All right. So, for example, looking at this on this time frame, this looks really nice. There's somebody I've got no association with her, by the way, but I think she's a magnificent trader. Really wanted to connect with her over the years and really must make the effort to do so. Dentoshi, who uses moving averages like art. Lots to learn from her, I think. But basically, look, when these expand and you get these gaps underneath these, it shows you that there's strength in this downtrend. The same way that you see these gaps appear more and more as there's strength in the uptrend, you're looking for these key support and resistance flips within these clusters. Now, for me, what I would be doing here is, let me just turn that off for a second. I would then take this to, say, a daily. So if we run our TA on this here, I would be looking for things like this, right? I'd be saying, okay, on a daily level, we've got a sweep of key liquidity here. Do that in red so it stands out. I'm looking to see when the moving averages kind of get closed above, right? That's kind of holding the market here, which is nice. That's capping the downside. So as soon as we get this, I would then look to move to, say, a 4 hour. I'd then pop the moving averages on here. Yeah. And what I would say to myself is, okay, we're above it here. These are high risk. Until look at the way they're compressing together here. Now what I would want to see is this be treated as like a support and resistance level, or actually I would have already probably been long on this, right? Because look, closed above them all here for the first time. And what do we get? Like you're alluding to there, my friend, we got a big, beautiful bullish gap here, right? Just tells us that these are the kind of areas we want to be long. Now, don't get me wrong, this is a bit more of an intraday play or a short-term swing, and I'd just be holding it into this level here. But now what I want to do is see these moving averages start to move up. And then I want to be looking at things like my order blocks and saying, right, if we hold this bad boy here and the moving averages are coming up as support as well, hopefully this will cushion us nicely as we move higher. All right. Hopefully that's good enough for you to show you I'm not just a one-trick pony with price action. Yeah, but look, 4 hour ADA here. This is my kind of key level here. This order block. Price has run up, taken liquidity above here. This was a key thing for me because this was capping the market. It was a bearish FEG, resistance, 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 till we closed above it. We inverted it here. So you can say, okay, well, it was bearish all the way to there, but now we've inverted it, right? So now this should be acting as support. Lines up with our order block. Hold this, we move higher. Close below that and this, and I think we run back down to this SR level down here. All right, guys. Look, I'm going to call it a day there. That way I've got myself about 15 minutes to go make some eggs and pour a fresh cup of tea because always half of this bad. This one goes cold on the stream. Look, I really hope you have enjoyed the live show. Please do remember that you can come and join the Discord for free at the moment. Right, I'm going to pop the link back up in here. It's also in the description. Reach out to me on Twitter at BC_Richfield as well. Please do remember to go and follow Just Pit. All right, you can find that in the Twitter handle in the comments as well. So far, about 3 of you have done that. So it's up to you guys. He's not really that bothered about having that many followers, but I just think if you don't hate money, probably good to follow people like this. If you do hate money, then I can give you some really good people to follow as well. And I think most of you probably know who they are. So just wishing you all a fantastic weekend. Please do trade safe. Remember, we've got FOMC later on today. Trade Club, all you legends who are with us over at the Nest, I will see you over there in about 20 minutes. And we are going to live trade today. We're going to take a look at the NASDAQ. We're also going to dive into some crypto as well today, I think. Got a good feeling about it today. So let's see if we can get some on there and build on out. I think 43, 44R we're up so far since February, March time. So let's get ourselves involved. You can come and join us today if you want, just by clicking that link. Get access to the Discord, and I'll see you all there in 20 minutes. All right, guys, have a fantastic week ahead. I look forward to seeing so many of you over at the Nest. external liquidity. Or this one, for example, or let's give another couple of examples here as well. Sweat this low here as well, right? So let's just make these a bit fatter so they really stand out. So this is like the flux, if you like. This is the motion, the dynamic of price. What it does is it cleans out liquidity from one area and then it revisits a gap. And the idea of the gap is to give you an indication of whether it's ready to move or not, right? So when we take we're going to focus on lows and highs here, right? But when we take a low, we then say, right, unless we displace aggressively below that low, displace means that we close a big bodied candle below that low or high, yeah, then we look for price almost always to revisit a gap. So external liquidity, or extreme, or even stone today, what's like the external liquidity there, we look higher for our gap. So there's internal liquidity here, which at the time was a bearish gap. So now we're in internal liquidity. Our expectation is that we go from external to internal, internal to external. Yeah, back to this low now. So what if we're wrong and it happens? Well, quite simply, if price here at the moment is fine, right? We're seeing that again. You can draw your equilibrium on here as well. Price is holding below that, very nice. So now we're short bias because we're in here, right? But then this happens. Thought this was going down, no problem. What does this then become? An inversion gap. So the inversion gap says, okay, well, we've now failed this. Price is no longer looking for internal, it's now looking for external. In the form of this higher. So from here we were bearish, yeah? Yeah, always, mate. Best and cleanest way to think about it is just always look for a gap. But now from here we're bullish.